Alright, this training video is meant to explain how we use our inventory system. So the first thing that we're going to do is choose which products we would like to track inventory on. So if I go into products, each of my products has a separate checkbox here where I can choose if I want to track inventory. In my system, I've chosen my 10-pound and 20-pound bagged ice to choose inventory to track inventory on. The reason we do this is because there's often a lot of products that are not actual products. You wouldn't want to track inventory on transaction fees or credits or something like that. So you can choose to only track which products you want to keep a running inventory on. On each of these products that we are tracking inventory, you're going to have location quantities and transaction history and inventory discrepancies under that product itself. So you can click on location quantities for the 10-pound bagged ice and see which locations have which quantities of this product. If you want to record inventory from here or to do transfers, you have access under the product itself. Or we also have the ability to go in under product locations and choose which location you're wanting to enter an inventory count for, and that's usually how we would think of doing an inventory count, is choosing a particular warehouse and saying, okay, I'm going to enter new counts for this warehouse. Lots, you can see that I have some lot numbers in my system. Of course, my database is just a test database, so I do all kinds of things. You can choose to use lots or not use lots. And if you're using lots, you would of course want to track inventory. If we go into the actual record inventory screen, you can see up here that there's a date and time that defaults to current date and time, but you may be entering counts from a different time. So if the warehouse had been counted yesterday at midnight, I could backdate it and choose whatever date and time the actual count happened. And by doing that, then routeman knows when to enter that quantity and will do the math to figure out what's happened since then to adjust. So our inventory system is very date and time specific. I will make sure that I'm choosing the correct warehouse. And then there are several different actions that I can take here. But if I'm just entering the actual quantities that I want to do a count for, what I'll do is I would leave it on lot 0, or if I were actually using lots, I would pick which lot I'm entering the quantity for. But in this case, let's just say I'm not using lots, so I'll leave it on 0. I'll hit load product, and then right here it's showing me the two products that I track inventory on, and I can click into the box right here and enter how much was counted for this location. And if I don't have a quantity for one of them, that's okay, and I can just enter however many products have been counted for that location on that day. If I'd like to record some notes along with that, I certainly can. And when I'm done, I can print it, or I can just hit submit inventory. If I do that, then if I go back to my Clanton warehouse, I'll go ahead and hit cancel and close. I'm on my Clanton warehouse. Let me do a move to refresh it. Okay, and you can see that the last inventory count for my quantities here has been marked as today and has reflected the amount that I put in. it's still listing a separate entry for these lot numbers right here. And until I clear out those lots, use them up or delete them, it's still going to list those separately. But if you're not using lots, you won't see those. You'll just see 2 entries for the 2 products that I'm tracking. When you're using the inventory system, I'm going to go back in here just to talk about one other concept. You can read through the different details here, or if you have questions, you can call and we can read through them with you and kind of explain what you're trying to do. One of the things that's very important is that you're always updating your counts. You're always entering new counts, because routeman operates like a checkbook. If you remember in the old days when you had your checkbook, you had to balance it every so often. And so maybe at the end of the month, you went through and you kept track of which checks had cleared and which deposits had been entered. And so you created kind of like a new running balance baseline. And routeman does that. And when I entered those counts a few moments ago for the Clanton warehouse, that becomes the new baseline, the new last entry. And so until I enter new counts again, it will go back to today and recalculate all the transactions that happened with those particular products since today. So if I wait 6 months from now before I enter new counts, my system is going to have to recalculate every time a transfer happened from the warehouse to the truck, and every time the truck sold some product off of it. It's going to have to run all of those calculations across my whole company until I enter new counts. And so one of the things that we encourage you to do is to enter counts frequently so that it's less transactions, because over time that will slow down your system. Well, if you don't do an actual hard count very often, one of the things that you can do is come in here and choose record all location current on hands as inventory counts. And so what that would do is just basically take whatever quantities the different product locations have and re-enter them as a new count as of today. So for example, if I come in here, let's just choose a different one. Okay, I'm going to come into this Sudbury warehouse. I don't do a lot of transactions in my routeman database, but there are some transactions here, and you can see that what's happened is, as I've done 60 different transactions here since my last count last year, I've run into a negative quantity. And so obviously these are not correct quantities. So one of the things I could do is go in there and enter a true count. The other thing I could do is record my inventory, and I could choose record all location current on hands, which is going to do all of my trucks and all of my warehouses. It's going to update the current on hands to be the new true inventory counts. And then if I choose this record negatives as 0, at least in the case of having these negative numbers here that I know are not accurate, I will be truing them up to at least 0. So if I hit execute selected action, this is going to give me a heads up. This is a big deal. It's not reversible and all that. And then just to scare you even more, Jack has this, you have to type yes. Okay, yes. All right, and that's been recorded. And if I hit cancel and close, then if I refresh the screen here, go back to Sudbury, you'll see that it's recorded as being empty. And that's because they were negatives, and now they've been trued out to be 0. And I've also, if the product was listed, it would have transactions since last count would be 0 because I haven't done any new transactions yet. And so over time, those are the transactions that will slow down your system if you don't come in and do counts from time to time. So if you look at some of my other locations, it's updated the quantities to be the numbers that were already there, but it's date and time stamped it as of now, and there's no transactions to be recalculated each time. Okay, now for each of your locations, we have inventory transactions, and as you remember, you can look them up by the product and track the different products, or you can go by the warehouse or the truck and look at the transactions as they've been going. I'm going to expand this out here a little bit. Okay, so these green entries are the new count that I just put in place. The rest down here are all the transactions that happened since the last time I did a count. And in that case, it was just on that particular lot. In looking at these columns down here, it does get a little bit confusing, but what it's doing is tracking the inventory amount of both the sending location and the receiving location. So if you're transferring product from the warehouse to the truck, it's reflecting both of those, and you can dig back through your history and find mistakes if you have to. This next tab, Inventory Discrepancies, is supposed to try and help you figure out if you have discrepancies where they're at. But then again, if things are working properly, it doesn't really show you, the problems that aren't there. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is talk about how it displays in the dispatch when you have inventory tracking. So one of the things that's very helpful about tracking inventory is your dispatcher can see how much inventory anybody has on their truck, as long as the driver is correctly transferring product onto the truck, and if possible, the orders being placed can include the amount of product that's needed or committed to the customers that are assigned to them. So we're going to use device number 3 right now to talk about how it looks from the driver's and the dispatcher's perspective. So I have a few orders that have been placed in here, and there are a couple different ways that the inventory quantity can end up being part of the order. One of them is if you're assigning the route as a complete route, you can come in here and let me pick one. Okay. When I'm creating the route orders, I can choose par levels, or I can choose invoice average summaries over a given number of days. And this is an editable field, so you could change that date range that you want to use. And what would happen is if I have par level quantities assigned, it's going to tally up all the par levels for these different orders that I'm creating. And this can be an amount that we as a company assign, or we can run a process that chooses the average over a given number of days and enters that quantity into the saved par level. The invoice average summary orders is just a fluid thing. Every time that I hit this button and create the new orders for the route for the day, it will look back 60 days for this customer and say, okay, if I take all of the tickets that were made, all the invoices that were made for this customer, and average them all out over the last 60 days, what did they typically buy? And it will quantify all of those orders and create a total that this driver is committed to deliver. And so I'm going to cancel out of that, and that's what you see right in this field is the committed number. Okay, so this doesn't mean that this is all the driver is going to deliver for the day, but we expect that they're going to deliver at least 423 10-pound bags and 50 20-pound bags. Let me click back off of that. Okay, the other way that the inventory quantity is added to the order is when you're creating hot shots. I already did this customer, but let me show right here. Many times we're just sending an order when we're just hitting submit. But if I'll come in here, if I'm the person entering the order and I choose the product and I enter a real quantity, that's going to be added to the total for that order. Whoever gets assigned that order is going to have 50 more committed 10-pound bags. If I have par levels set, then if there's a quantity assigned to that par level as well, that's going to be included in the order itself. Okay, now going back to the dispatch, you can see that there's no product on the truck. So my driver is going to have to load the inventory on the truck for this number to reflect. So he's going to have to add at least 423 10-pound bags and 50 20-pound bags. But I want you to see that also, if I grab another order that has quantity assigned to it and I assign it to my device number 3, then what's going to happen is, as you just saw, it updates to a larger number that I've committed that this driver is going to need to deliver today. Okay, now let's take a look at how it looks on the device. Of course, I'm going to begin my day as the driver doing a full sync because I want all the most up-to-date information possible. Okay, now I log in and you see the very first screen that I get is my inventory screen. And you can see that I have 0 quantity on the truck right now, but I'm committed to 423 10-pound bags and 160 20-pound bags. If you're tracking lots, it's going to list the quantities separately for each lot that you have. Okay. If the driver is responsible to transfer the inventory on their trucks, which I didn't mention it when I was showing the warehouse quantities and all that, but there are transfer buttons there. Inventory can be transferred from the office or from the warehouse. If the driver is the one that's responsible for loading the inventory onto the truck as he's actually loading his truck in the morning, or even if it's already loaded and he's just responsible to enter it, we have to turn on the settings that allow them to transfer inventory. So each device needs the permission to be able to transfer inventory. So I, as the driver, would hit transfer in, and then now I have to pick which warehouse is this coming from, and I can choose from the drop down. And I don't remember, I think my Birmingham warehouse has product. So let's pretend that I'm going to enter 1,000 10-pounds. And I'm going to hit complete transfer. Okay, now I've got plenty of 10 pounds, but I also have to add some 20 pounds. So I'm going to transfer in again from the Birmingham warehouse, and I'm going to enter 220 pounds and hit complete transfer. Okay, so now you can see that I have enough product to meet my commitments, and if you scroll over, it gives you an idea how much extra product I have available beyond what I expect to sell already. Okay? And then throughout the day, as I'm making my sales, throughout the day, these numbers are going to update. And at the end of the day, we can transfer all back out of the device or out of the truck back into the warehouse. We're going to hit return so that we can get out to one of the other screens. And when you're on any of the other screens away from the inventory, you can come up here to the menu, and under File, you're going to be able to hit the inventory button, and it will bring you back there so that you can see where you're at as far as your inventory for the day if you'd like. Okay, so throughout the day, as I'm making my deliveries, those quantities are going to update, and you can see in the dispatch that these numbers will change. As product gets loaded on the truck, as the driver makes sales, these numbers are going to continually change so that the people in the office have a reflection of where the driver stands as far as how much product they have on their truck. So you can make decisions on who is going to get the extra orders for the day, the extra hot shots for the day, without overcommitting your drivers to too much product. Now, at the end of the day, when you're going through the logout process, the driver will actually have an extra step. I'll hit logout, and I'll just enter some numbers there. Okay, and so here I'm going to transfer all my inventory back off the truck. Are you sure you want to? Yes. Okay, and so by doing that, I am telling routeman that I took whatever was left on my truck and brought it back to the warehouse, because some companies keep the product on the truck. We've made this optional, but for most companies, they want the inventory to come back off the truck at the end of each day. I hope this video has given you a sense of how detailed the inventory system in Routeman is. It's a very elaborate system. If I made a complete video that showed every detail, it would be very long. As always, if you have more questions, if you'd like to learn more about the inventory system and how you can use it to help your company, give us a call and we'll talk through the options and help you make the decisions that are right for you.